how many of you think sports writing is about sports? And of course, all 28 of us rose there. What are you talking about? Oh, yeah, sports? What's this woman talking about? She said, no, sports writing is about people. It's the people who play the sports and coach the sports and where they came from, because everyone has a why. And I never forgot about that.
Yeah.
And I've tried to make my career about telling everybody people's whys in sports and telling what you can't see on television and Sports Center and on your phone and the highlights. My first year and a half there, I think I thought about leaving every day that I thought about thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I brushed my teeth, I thought about it. When I went to bed, if I couldn't sleep, I thought about it.
Wow.
It was so different than what I had grown up in. If you're able to afford it, go with what you love. Because ultimately, that's what's most important of your job. It's not about how much money you make. It's about, do you like doing what you're doing? Are you motivated to do it? Can you impact and influence other people and enjoy doing it?
Hello, and welcome to the Reverb Podcast. This is the section where we talk about things so you don't have to.
Oh, yeah. This is the new segment we're doing.
Yeah, Gary.
Yeah.
We're in it now.
Is the lightning round?
We'll get to the lightning round. We're gonna drag our way through this to start off.
Okay.
But, so anyhow, the thing that's come to mind recently is travel, airplane travel, and I haven't been taking that many flights lately. But when things do happen, traveling, it does bring up memories of past lives and stories.
Oh, okay.
Sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like past trips you've taken.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
And the one most recently was I was flying, just to Denver, I think. And the flight attendant came on, gave the usual safety overview and talked about a few other things. But then she got into some things about if you're watching things on your phone or on your tablet, is that what did she say exactly? That they
age appropriate? Or
very offensive content is prohibited, I think is the quote.
Right.
And that was the first time I'd heard that, but my second thought was, this is going to be a longer flight than I thought it was going to be.
Because you weren't going to be able to watch offensive things?
It just seemed like it was going to stretch things out a bit. So,
well, the thing is that they don't really define that, right? I mean, they just say anything that's offensive, and you could say, well, I mean, I don't think this is offensive.
Well, that goes right back to the Warren Court. I know it when I see it, kind of a thing.
Okay.
Yeah, the definition of that sort of stuff there. But it was the first time I'd heard that, which also leads me to believe, and I should have asked somebody on a flight attendant or something, what made that line become part of the spiel?
Yeah. What was the incident or incidents?
Yeah.
Yeah, multiple.
Yeah. And maybe she'll even get on the the microphone there and tell the entire place what happened with that one.
Okay, hey, I got another topic for you. Have you ever been in an Uber, and have you fallen asleep in the Uber?
Yes and no. I've been in an Uber.
Okay.
I've never fallen asleep.
Oh, okay. I thought you'd been yes and no on the sleep part. Okay, so you've been in an Uber. You've never fallen asleep in an Uber?
No.
Okay. I was starting to drift off in an Uber the other day, and I felt like the guy was kind of monitoring that in the mirror. And then I thought, what if I end up in like a dark garage or something? I've fallen asleep.
Between the germophobia and because there may have been a baby on that flight with you years ago, or on another flight.
Yeah, no, I'm worried about like clean trays and babies flying through the air and Uber drivers capturing me.
Let's just jump to the end here. How do you sleep?
Not well. You know what? Okay, let's talk about that. So, do you sleep to silence or do you sleep to noise? This is actually a survey I like to take of our guests.
Well, you like to take of our guests. Okay.
I think we should start asking guests about how they like to sleep to noise or silence. I think it's kind of an interesting question because I think people who can like sleep with silence, I think they're more peaceful. That's my theory. My theory is that people that sleep to silence, that have no sound, they're at peace. They lay their head on the pillow and they're at peace with themselves, peace with the world, and they're just like, I'm relaxed. I'm just going to go to sleep now. For me, I've got all this like pent up anxiety and thoughts going on, and if it's silent, my brain, I can hear my brain going, oh yeah, let me tell you about stuff.
So you sleep to noise.
You know how it all started? When I used to get colds when I was a kid, my mom would put a vaporizer in the room, and the vaporizer made this like low drone noise, like this bzzz, kind of like as the steam came out.
Yeah.
When I was well, like after the sniffles had gone away and everything, I'd fill up that vaporizer every night because I got used to the noise and I liked it to put me to sleep. So I started running the vaporizer until the wallpaper started coming off the walls.
I am doing a podcast with Felix Unger.
You are.
Holy.
And so the wallpaper started peeling off my bedroom wall. And my mom comes in and she says, "You got to stop using the vaporizer. You're going to poke somebody's eye out."
There we go.
Yes,
ladies, we're gonna end it on that. We're gonna save everybody else. We're moving on at this point.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reverb Podcast. We appreciate you listening today. This is where we get to talk to fascinating people about the way they think, what they've learned along the way, and we like to goof off a little bit, have some fun. So, but today we are excited to have a longtime friend of mine on the podcast, Gregg Bell, and just give you a little background on Gregg, and then we won't tell the whole story because we want him to talk about his journey. But Gregg's is for the Seahawks and NFL writer for the News Tribune. He's actually a two-time Washington State Sports Writer of the Year, voted by the National Sports Media Association in January 23 and January 2019. He started covering the NFL in 2002 as the Oakland Raiders beat writer. I got to ask you more about that. For the Sacramento Bee. Is an Ohio native, began covering the Seahawks in their first Super Bowl season in 2005. In a prior life, he graduated from West Point, served as a tactical intelligence officer in the U.S. Army. And I like the part that says that you may ask people to drop and give you 10. So that's awesome. Love that.
Gary, you've always been too cool to me. I've never asked you. I don't think I've ever asked you to drop for push. Although we had some late nights. Maybe I don't remember what
we
I
might have
asked you to
done
do.
some push-ups at a bar somewhere. I don't know. That could have happened. So yeah.
What I'm hearing is I'm not immune from being asked to do that.
Don, you're next. You're next.
So
We'll start off with give us a little sense of where you came from, where you started, and along the way here. Was your 9-year-old dream to go to West Point? How did that work?
I'm from Steubenville, Ohio, and I'm all of us. I think I might be dating all of us by saying, do you remember Tom Cruise's All the Right Moves?
Oh yeah.
His first big movie before.
Yeah,
that was my town, a steel town. We had 22,000 people in our town of Steubenville, Ohio, and on Friday nights for football, about 12 or 13,000 of them were at the high school football stadium. It had this was 1987, 96, 86, 87. It had a video scoreboard back then. It had a horse that ran across the top of the scoreboard breathing fire. The games were on live television. It was the NFL in high school.
So it was like Friday Night Lights. It's like that.
Before Friday Night Lights, it was.
Okay.
It was like Odessa, Midland, West Texas. It was that. I would get called out of class to do television interviews as the captain of the football team. We went to the Ohio State Championship both my junior and senior year. We played at Ohio State's Horseshoe in Columbus at Ohio State University. We had 35,000 people at those games.
So were you the quarterback? Were you the quarterback or were you the interviewer?
I was a defensive end.
Oh, you defensive end. Okay. All right.
I was a defensive end. I actually was the backup quarterback if we ever needed to throw, but we were always so good. We ran a triple option. We never threw the ball. So I had two sets of shoulder pads. I had my quarterback shoulder pads I never put on because we never lost. And then I had my defensive end with the neck roll, looking big and bad, and the big shoulder pads for defensive end. So anyway, that's the long way of saying it. It was football, and football in this steel town. And that's what I grew up in. I wanted to play college football, and I got pericarditis when I was going into my senior year, inflammation of the lining of the heart that became more well-known during COVID.
Oh, okay.
Because COVID viruses started to settle.
Right. I remember that. Okay.
Right. Well, I had pericarditis in 1986, 87.
Okay. Ahead of your time. You were leading.
I was a trendsetter. So I missed half of my senior year, and any of the few college recruiters in Ohio and the Midwest that were looking at me said, well, you're not playing as a senior. We're not going to recruit you. So
okay.
My college options at the time, I had a twin sister. My father was a self-employed chiropractor in this steel town. My mother was a gifted education and kindergarten teacher in Steubenville. So we weren't rich. We lived a comfortable life, but we weren't rich. And I had a twin sister that was already going into college as well. And so the best option I had was the West Point recruiter for the Ohio Congressional District guy that then called me at the beginning of my senior year and said, hey, have you ever looked at West Point? Your grades are pretty good. Captain of the football team, you're key club president and stuff. And I said, no. And they said, well, would you like to come and be at the U.S. Military Academy of West Point and be in the Army? This was back, I would watch Army Navy games. I thought Army and Navy were just all the best Army dudes in the world and all the best Navy dudes in the world got together and played a football game. I didn't realize they had military academies where students went to college and then became officers in engineering programs. And so I didn't even know West Point was.
Oh, this is perfect. This is a perfect beginning. I love that.
But I didn't know that at the time. And then I told my mom, hey, the West Point recruit, and I didn't even know where West Point was.
Yeah.
And my mom just, I'll never forget the look on her face. A West Point recruiter called it. What'd you tell him? I mean, she got all excited.
Oh, so she liked the idea.
She was all, it's such an honor. You have to pursue it. And this is great. So I looked into it, and fortunately enough, I got the congressional appointment. Every West Point, Annapolis, Colorado Springs, the Air Force Academy, every year, each congressional district gets one candidate to rise and be that district's representative for each service academy. And I was fortunate to win West Point's nomination for our congressional district. Douglas Applegate was our congressman in Ohio at the time. So that's how I got into West Point.
Okay.
My twin sister was going to college at the same time. So money financially, it was a great deal. I thought, well, this is free. It was not free.
Yeah, right.
It was free for my mom and dad, but not for me. And even my mom and dad drove up there so many times just to keep me there, a 10-hour drive one way, that it was not free for them either. Yeah. That's the long story of how I got to West Point.
Did you think about leaving or something? Were they really coming up to keep you there? Like, don't leave. And were you thinking
Gary,
about going?
My first year and a half there, I think I thought about leaving every day that I thought about thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, like when I brushed my teeth, I thought about it. When I went to bed, if I couldn't sleep, I thought about it.
Wow.
It was so different than what I had grown up in.
Yeah.
My dad was self-employed. He answered his own phone in his chiropractic office in Steubenville. He didn't want to have a secretary. He had my mom work for him as a secretary for a while, and she hated it because he couldn't stand working for him.
Okay.
So he's this fiercely independent guy. The last thing he would ever be would be in the military. We had no family background other than an uncle who was in Normandy. My mother, though, is much different. She was raised in a very strict household, following rules, manners. She could have gone to West Point, in fact. She was that. She loved it.
Could have set up some of the rules there, probably.
She was, Suffice to say, I went to West Point. I got there after about a year and a half in. At West Point, to this day, at all service academies, you can go free of charge the first 2 years, but the first class of your third year, your junior year, if you sit for that first academic day, you are then committed to serving in that military if you then leave or get kicked out.
Yeah, ROTC is the same way, I think.
Correct. If you get a scholarship toward ROTC and then you leave.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I ask you, the first day, what was the eye-opening experience there for you?
So at the time, it's changed the venue now, but at the time it was Crystal Arena. It's a basketball arena at the top of the hill next to Mikey Stadium at West Point. I walked in there in the arena with all these other 17 and 18-year-old high school seniors, big shots, who were told they're the greatest thing ever. And we're in there with civilian clothes on. They told us to wear black shoes because we were going to wear black service shoes and march around in the rest of the day. And so a bunch of people who were prepared and had military backgrounds and tipped off wore military service shoes, so they would fit right in. Well, I'm from Steubenville, Ohio, which is a very heavily Italian area, an ethnic area. I wore Italian pointed-tipped dancing black shoes. That was a mistake number one. So they say, okay, new cadets, say goodbye to your families. And you say goodbye, you hug. My girlfriend was there. My mom and dad were there. Girlfriend there was a mistake, too, because that was just a cry-a-thon. And then they said, now report to the cadet in the red sash. So you walk across the length of the court and you make a right into I'll never forget. Every time I go into Crystal Arena, I get shivers. And I turn the corner and there's not one cadet. There's like 15 cadets in red sashes and they're in dress uniforms with their hats on. And it was like dinosaurs spewing fire out of their mouths. They were yelling so much, so fast, so many things at us at one time, trying to overload us. The transition from civilian to military was bam. Get to my white line, cadet, get to my white line. Oh. And it's just, whoa.
Wow.
And the rest of the day was like that. And my shoes, I got absolutely roasted by every upperclassman on campus for my shoes. Who's this guy? And we're wearing name tags.
Are we fancy later?
It's Dancing New Cadet Bell. Come look at Dancing New Cadet Bell.
What was your nickname from that day?
Is your nickname?
Dancing New Cadet Bell. It was for a long time, and I can't dance, but I had these nice Italian shoes. In fact, it was such a joke that when we got fitted on the first day for our service shoes, the upperclassmen wouldn't let me get those service shoes because they wanted me to keep wearing the dancing Italian shoes so I could get just reamed for it. Absolutely
over it.
Those damn shoes, I wanted to walk around barefoot for.
Did you burn those shoes eventually, or what did you do?
I wouldn't even give them to Goodwill. That would have been too mean and too many bad vibes. Yeah, that was.
You needed to make sure they never found they were bad.
They were cool in high school, though. I was the stuff in high school. Yeah, that was a mistake. First day, Todd I'll never forget the dancing shoes.
Oh man,
90 years old. My mom still laughs about the dancing shoes.
So at West Point, you got your degree there. How long were you in the military after that?
I had a 5-year commitment. I graduated with a system engineering and management science degree. I was a tactical intelligence officer. I picked military intelligence because it looked like it had the shortest military career. I just wanted to get out.
Right. Okay.
And a lot of my friends did aviation, but that added service time because you go to flight school. It turns out that was kind of a short-sighted decision, though I did really like military intelligence. It had a really neat cross-section of some were brainiacs, some were people from all walks of life. I had a lot of women commanders. My first battalion commander was a woman. My company commander was a woman. It was the most female-dominated Army branch at the time. This was 1993, 94.
Right.
So that was an interesting experience, a learning dynamic of that. A lot of women commanders in a very male-dominated force. And then my last 2 years, I absolutely loved it. I was the only intelligence officer in a mechanized infantry battalion at Fort Lewis in south of Tacoma and loved it. I mean, they thought I was the guy because I was the intel guy. They treated me like one of the infantry dudes, and I loved it. I had a great time. And I really enjoyed that job as a captain. And then they told me that, okay, Bell, you've been at Fort Lewis for a while. You need to go to be a company commander at your division headquarters area, which is in Korea, South Korea. But you got to go to the DMZ on Camp Casey, and we don't have family housing. And Wendy and I, Todd, Gary knows my wife, Wendy and I had just gotten married about 7 or 8 months before the Army told me I had to go to Camp Casey. That's an unaccompanied tour for 18 months minimum. So I couldn't bring her. I wouldn't be able to bring my wife with me. And Wendy, as she is, she's like, oh, I'll just move to Seoul and teach English as a second language. I'll just drive up and see you at the DMZ. I'm like, hon, you don't get it. That's a war zone. That's still an active war. You just can't drive up the little Hyundai or Subaru up to the DMZ. They don't let you in. I'll never see you.
Yeah.
Well, then you can just come to Seoul. I'm like, no, they don't just let you leave either. It's like Roach Motel. They check in, you don't check out. You're just there for 18 months.
You could maybe get to a chain link fence and see her through the fence.
Yeah, press my nose through it. Yeah, I mean, that would have been,
I
wasn't going to displace her and move her over there. And so many guys I had seen come back from that tour in particular, unaccompanied 18 months, had come back divorced. That it spooked me. And I said, you know what? I wanted to teach at West Point. I wanted to be an English professor. And they said, you can do that, but you got to do command first before we send you to grad school. So I said, okay, I'll get out. I'll go to grad school myself. And that's how I got to Cal Berkeley. Todd, what I wanted to do since I was 8 or 9 years old was be a sports writer. I used to sit in front of my television in Steubenville, Ohio, and watch the games and then handwrite in cursive game stories after what I just watched. My mom still has the folder of the handwritten stories that I wrote when I was.
You did that when you were like a kid.
Second grade.
Second grade? Oh, wow. That's
so
cool.
Your 9-year-old self is actually what you became.
It is.
Wow. That's cool.
And there's I can tell you all kinds of forks in the road that I kept choosing that path over more money and more opportunities. And a lot of people say, you're a West Point graduate and you're a sports writer? What happened? And as if I got thrown out of the Army or something. I said, no, this is what I chose because I've always wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Tell me you don't drift into a court-martial story after a few years.
No, I don't. I was honorable discharge. I had a great time in the Army. I have great friends to this day. I have friends who are commanding generals at Fort Leonard Wood and other places.
Wow.
I go back to the Army-Navy game every year, but I I do feel like I've lived two completely separate lives.
Yeah.
Because my current one has nothing to do with what I did before.
Hey, did you play football then when you were at West Point?
I played for the first couple months. I was not even an invited walk-on, Gary. And back then, before scholarship limits, which are gone now, you could have at the service academies, because everyone essentially was on scholarship free. We had like 130 guys out for the team.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like ninth string, and I was getting beat up.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing well academically, and I was losing weight. I lost so much weight. The 150-pound football coach came and asked me to come. I was 205 when I got to West Point, and the 150-pound coach asked me because I'd lost 25 pounds in about 3 weeks in basic training. So I was a mess physically.
That experience has got to be really tough, where you're in this place, you know you need to complete it, because that's just kind of how you think about things. But it's not where you want to be, and you're in a world where a bunch of people do want to be there. How does your mind deal with that?
Well, you're right, Todd, because it was hyper type A, aggressive personalities, and everyone trying to exceed and excel. I just decided, hey, I can do this. And I just challenged myself and said, you know what? You got here. Someone said you belonged here, and do this. And don't let this beat you. And that's really what it was. It was a daily challenge for me to not get defeated by the circumstances. And I finally just decided, you know what? Why would I have gone through basic training and lost 25 pounds in 3 weeks and been screamed at for my stupid shoes and all these things I hated being away from home? Why would I go all through that just to go be a regular university college graduate after 2 more years? I can do this. I'm through the hard part.
Yeah.
So I stayed. And my final 2 years were so much better once I just let go of being so bitter about being there. I just said, okay, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to do this. And I did. I was proud of it.
It's quite an accomplishment.
That's
for
great
sure.
lesson, great advice, actually.
So tell us about the story. So you went from West Point. So was your first gig the Sacramento Bee on the Oakland Raiders? Like what was it like between West Point? You went to school, obviously, then after school, is that your first gig right out of graduate school?
I was in Fort Lewis, and my wife and I said, we want to stay on the West Coast. And I said, what's the best journalism school on the West Coast? And it was University of California, Berkeley. And I went down there. I'd never been to Berkeley before. My eyes were wide open in that place. And I got to the campus, and they said, well, what journalism background do you have? I said, well, I called a couple basketball games for the cadet radio station, but it's not exactly a liberal arts school at West Point. We didn't have a lot of liberal arts curriculum.
Right.
And the dean of the school at the time was very heavily into Chinese geopolitics, Chinese, this was 1998, 99, the fall of the communist regime. And he was really into that. He kind of tailored the program at the Cal Berkeley Journalism School toward a lot of those issues in the Far East. And he and his staff looked at me and said, what are you doing here? You're a former West Point grad. You are a West Point graduate who wants to be a sports writer, and you've walked onto the Berkeley campus with this Chinese Far East Asian geopolitics bent. And I was about to leave. I thought, well, I went down. They didn't require personal interviews, but I went down to personally interview with the faculty there because I thought that was my only chance to get in, because if they just looked at me a paper, they'd say, well, this guy doesn't fit.
Oh, right.
And one of the 5 people I interviewed with, his name is Neil Henry. He was a former sports writer for the Washington Post, who was also the Africa bureau chief of the Washington Post. And he was on the faculty there. And he said, Greg, I really admire this because, this is a road that not many travel. We don't have a lot of West Point graduates come rolling through here. But you're following your heart. You want to be a sports writer. And you're really clear about that. I was 27 at the time, so I was a few years older than most of the other grad school students that were mostly right out of undergrad. And he said, you could go to law school. You could go to get an MBA. You could be a pharmaceutical salesperson, which a lot of West Point junior officers were. They made a lot of quick money on commissions, and junior officers are really big at pharmaceutical sales at the time. I don't know if they still are. And he said, but no, you know what? You didn't want any of that. And you said, I'm going to U-turn my career in life completely and go be a sports writer. I really admire that. Come on down. I'll be your graduate advisor. And he was. And that's how I got into Berkeley. And Neil Henry, to this day, I owe my career to him and to Bill Endicott. Everybody out there, you're going to find, if you don't know already, there are people that are going to be your stewards that help you get you where you are.
Yeah.
Bill Endicott of the Sacramento Bee was an executive editor who used to be a Marine officer. And when my first months at Berkeley, I applied to an internship at the Sacramento Bee and the New York Times and the Washington Post, the LA Times and the Wall Street Journal. And all of them had news internships. And I said, nope, I want a sports internship. I said, Mr. Endicott, I want a sports internship. Well, we really don't have one. We just have news. I want to be a sports writer. That's all I want to do. So I went into the pile of resumes to all these application places in New York Times. And the pile of sports writers was like this.
Yeah.
And the pile of news applications were like this. So I was competing against myself or no one. And Bill Endicott, a former Marine officer, said the same thing Neil Henry did. So I really admire you doing this, and we're going to take you on. And
oh, that's awesome.
I commuted a little bit as an intern from Oakland, Berkeley to Sacramento, about 90 miles one way. And then after a while, they said, hey, the Oakland A's are getting good. And instead of us spending $90 a day in mileage and per diem to our guy driving from Sacramento to Oakland, why don't you just stay in Oakland instead of you driving from Oakland to Sacramento? And you just cover the A's.
Okay.
And it was a money thing, of course.
Yeah.
They saved money. I got to cover a team that unexpectedly made the playoffs that year. Hudson, Mulder, Giambi, the Moneyball A's. And
can we talk about the Moneyball thing? Because Todd does not know that there's a story behind you and the Moneyball.
Oh, you're connected to the Moneyball part of it?
Yeah. You got to tell the story.
Gary, you know this story.
I don't. You got to tell it. It's super interesting.
Michael Lewis wrote Moneyball, of course.
Right.
He joined the beat my second year on the A's beat. He basically became a beat writer to embed himself with the team from spring training through the end of the season. So he came with us to Phoenix for spring. The Sacramento Bee, to their credit, said my second year is a 2-year program at Berkeley. And the second year they said, you already have a job. Sacramento Bee is about to hire you. You got what everyone in this program is trying to get. Just go do your B job. You send one story to us for a school assignment and the other copy to your editors at the Bee, and we're good. I said, well, hey, that sounds good. So I spent the second semester of my last semester of grad school at spring training in Arizona, working for the Sacramento Bee. That was my class. Michael Lewis was starting his book, and he was researching at the time, and we were asking him what he was doing, and we told him, well, my master's thesis that spring was on Billy Beane and how he was winning on a shoestring budget. I think that was even the title of my thesis. It's still in Northgate Hall at the University of California, Berkeley. Billy Beane, I didn't call it Moneyball. I said Billy Beane winning on its shoestring budget with the Oakland A's or something like that. And I would talk about how he would even go to Cuba, for instance, to recruit a pitcher. He'd wait until the guy would have to go on a boat and risk his life and sail across to Mexico or something and then go pick him off there because it was cheaper. It was cheaper to recruit him and after he risked his life on a raft to get to where Billy Beane could just pay $200, $500 for a round trip for a ticket instead of $1,000 for a scout. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was actually the lead to my thesis. So Michael Lewis read my thesis and it became, I don't know if impetus because he was already starting, but it was early in the process that he read it. And he took a lot of those ideas and blew them out to become Moneyball. Now, Todd, Deadspin did, after Moneyball came out, track down my master's thesis. And they actually interviewed me and wanted me to say that Michael Lewis stole my thesis. But not true, first of all, because it was not proprietary information. Billy Beane, what he was doing was open source info. Anyone that was around the A's could see what he was doing. And then, of course, he had the time, the money, the wherewithal to make it what it became. And then he got motion picture rights and all of that. So it's not like he lifted my thesis, but it was something of the basis.
Did get some information from it, though. Sounds like
solid here. Michael Lewis stole your thesis. You wanted to be a sports writer, specifically sports. What about sports writing versus other kind of writing brought you in?
Well, first of all, I played all the sports growing up. I played 3 sports in high school. I was always playing sports. That's all I wanted to do since I was a little kid. My dad was a chiropractor. He hated that I played football. He was afraid of neck injuries and head injuries. And then, sure enough, my first varsity game, I got flipped trying to block a field goal. I landed on my head, and I couldn't remember the rest of the game. This is 1986. They gave me a few smelling salts, and I went back in the game.
Catch him up, get him back out there.
I don't even know how we won. I remember a couple weeks later, I remember my dad saying, "You had a concussion, didn't you?" And I was like, I don't know. Maybe I did.
And you're like, "Who are you?"
That's right. This is the time where if duct tape didn't solve it, use more duct tape.
Exactly. I think the smelling salts were just Morton salt back then. But that was the environment I was in. Steel Valley football was king. The Steelers at the time won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. It was Bradshaw, Stallworth, Swan, Lambert. I mean, every week the Steelers were on television winning Super Bowls and winning games and Monday Night Football. I thought, this is amazing. I live 30 minutes from Pittsburgh, and this is one. The Pirates won the World Series in 79, and it was just amazing to be a sports kid growing up there. And then 12,000 people were coming to high school games. Like, this is unbelievable. I'm going to do this. So I always was of the sports mind. And then I really did like to write, and I would do it as a hobby. And so I said, well, I like sports so much. Why don't I write about sports? And honestly, Todd, no other genre of writing really ever interests me. I do read nonfiction more than fiction, and I like to read biographies and nonfiction, not sports people in general. And one of my favorite books is the Obama autobiography. But I like to learn about people in that way. And I found that sports. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go into sports writing because I love sports. And then in my first class at Cal Berkeley as a 27-year-old grad student, Ann Killian, now of the San Francisco Chronicle, she was at the San Jose Mercury News at the time. Ann and I are great friends. I just saw her at the World Cup last week again here in Seattle, and we hug and we have a great time. We go out to dinner and drinks every time we see her. She's like a mentor to me still. The very first class I had, Ann Killian came in. It was just a writing class in general, not a sports writing class. And she said, how many of you think sports writing is about sports? And of course, all 28 of us rose up. What are you talking about? Oh, yeah, sports. What's this woman talking about? She said, no, sports writing is about people. It's the people who play the sports and coach the sports and where they came from, because everyone has a why. And I never forgot about that.
Yeah.
And I've tried to make my career about telling everybody people's whys in sports and telling what you can't see on television and Sports Center and on your phone and the highlights. Everyone watches the games, but not everyone knows how people got there. Not everyone knows that Leonard Williams was homeless in high school in Maitland High School in Daytona Beach, Florida, before he got a scholarship to USC. And not everyone knows that what people overcome of speech impediments or socioeconomic challenges, especially in professional sports.
Yeah.
I try to tell those stories. They're really rewarding to write and learn about. And so that makes every day I go to work actually a learning. It's new. It's not like I go every day I learn something I didn't know before.
Did you find through this process that you were in Sacramento and then you started doing the Oakland Raiders, right? And that was your first NFL team. And then before you became Seahawks, right? So
right. I did the Oakland A's for 2 or 3 years. Okay. And then the Oakland Raiders beat came up. And because I played football, I really like football. I like baseball because of the long season, and it's a big story with every game as a chapter, and it's just weaving of its threads throughout an entire season. But damn, it's long, and then you're on the road for 150 nights a year.
Yeah.
My wife and I were married for a couple of years at that point, and she's like, man, if you want to have kids and we want to start a family, you're not getting Marriott Platinum points while I'm home with kids. Forget that.
Right.
What kind of job can you get that you don't travel so much? I said, well, the NFL, they only go 8 road trips a year, and those trips are
games or 16 games, right? Yeah,
eight of them on the road, and the trips are only Saturday to Monday morning at most.
Yeah,
I could do that. And so instead of 14-day road trips like I had with Oakland A's, it was 2-day road trips, just 8 times a year with the Raiders.
Okay,
I got the Raiders job for the Sacramento Bee, and just like my first season as an intern covering the A's, I was lucky. The first season covering the Raiders, they went to the Super Bowl for the first time in like 15 years.
Oh, you serious? They went to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, can you believe it?
Like, maybe you should just move to the team that wants to go to the Super Bowl.
I should move to Cleveland.
Yeah, right.
The Browns would make it. So the Raiders won. It was 2002. It was John Gruden had just left and went to Tampa Bay. And it was the Bill Callahan, Rich Gannon, Jerry Rice, Tim Brown Raiders.
Yeah. Right. That was
Charlie Garner.
Squad.
Yeah, they had the number 1 offense in the league, and then they meet John Gruden in the Super Bowl. And a funny story in San Diego, we're all friends with Gruden because we had covered him the previous year. The entire beat loved Gruden. Gruden used to have us in his hotel suite before preseason game. We'd be in Dallas or something, or we'd have a preseason game. He'd come up to the suite and let's have Shiner Box. And he would tell us everything about the Raiders. He goes, this better never be in print with my name on it. Okay, we can do that.
Okay.
Sure thing. And he told us everything about Al Davis, about everything.
Wow.
And it was great. And then he left. He got traded to Tampa Bay because Al Davis needed the cash. And they traded a coach for cash.
Wow.
the coach, they trade him to Tampa Bay, and that year, guess who the Raiders played in the Super Bowl? Gruden's Buccaneers, Tampa Bay. And we're down in San Diego, and we knew what was going to happen. Bill Callahan, the offensive line coach for Gruden, left everything the same when Gruden left. All the play calls, all the terminology, all the audibles. Didn't change a thing. Not even when they were in 2 weeks to prepare for the Super Bowl to play Gruden's Bucs. So John Lynch and the Buccaneers were calling out the Raiders' plays at the line of scrimmage before they happened in the Super Bowl. Here comes the slant to Rice. Here comes an out route to Brown. Here comes Garner off tackle. They did this the entire game. And they intercepted him like 5 times. They were up like 48-10 or something. They ended up winning 48-21.
Yeah.
And after the game, we're underneath the stands in San Diego, walking down to the press conference. We're coming down. All the beat guys are coming down here. Gruden comes off the field and is coming around the corner. He sees us. And he's with all his Buccaneers, and people are going crazy. He looks at us and goes, "What do you think about that shit?"
Hi, I'm Todd from the Reverb Podcast with Todd and Gary. What? Gary's name goes first, and I'm contractually obligated, and he's got better lawyers. Okay, sure. I'm Todd from the Reverb Podcast with Gary and Todd. Everybody's life is different, so we talk to folks to understand what they do and how they got where they are, including all the twists and turns, forks in the road, and the role chance played. We ask about the challenges along the way, how they think about them, how they dealt with them, and what makes them grateful. And, as importantly, we have fun along the way. So join us on the Reverb Podcast wherever you listen or watch podcasts.
So you took on Oakland. Yeah. How long were you with the Raiders and reporting on the Raiders then?
2002 to 2005.
Okay.
And then the Associated Press job opened up in Seattle, and I had a friend who was moving to the Bay Area to be the AP writer, Jane McCauley, a Washington State graduate who had been in Seattle, and she was moving to San Francisco, the AP bureau there, and she recommended that I take her job in Seattle as the AP sports writer in Seattle. And my wife and I thought it was great because, unlike the Raiders and A's beat, I wouldn't have to travel. AP writers stayed in the cities. They wrote both sides. When a visiting team comes in, the AP writer writes the visiting team story and the home team story. And so I told her, look, I'll move to Seattle. The only place you said you would ever leave Berkeley for was going back to Seattle, because we spent 1 year before I got out of the Army and living in Olympia. And she said, Greg, Seattle's the only place we'll ever move to. I love Berkeley, but the only place I'll move to is Seattle. And so the job opened up here for the AP in Seattle. I said, it won't be any travel because the AP doesn't travel. Well, I go here. She said, well, someone told me that AP travels for things like Super Bowls and stuff. I said, the Seahawks have never been to the Super Bowl. Don't worry about that. I get here in October, and the Seahawks went to the Super Bowl that season. And it was, I don't know if you guys, how long you've been in Seattle. If you
I remember. It was the game against the Broncos, right?
Well, in the fall of 2005, we arrived at like day 2 of 47 consecutive days of rain in Seattle. From October till the end of November, like almost, it was through Thanksgiving in toward Christmas. There were floods, there were power outages, windstorms. It was like this whatever the word is.
Yeah.
It's crappy weather.
Yeah.
Apocalyptic weather.
Yeah.
And my wife and I and the kids, we were just like, what is this place? And I was working my butt off because the AP was killing me, and I had East Coast deadlines, and the Seahawks suddenly got good. And then they go to Detroit, and I travel for a week to Detroit. And Wendy's like, no. Our twins are, at the time, they're like 2.5 years old. She goes, no, you're not going anywhere. You told me we weren't traveling. I'm like, hon, this is the Super Bowl. I'm the international wire service writer for the Super Bowl team. I got to go. So I go and leave her with 2 babies in a rented house in North Seattle, and no sidewalks. This is like on 145th or somewhere the sidewalks end. Magically, Seattle's sidewalks end at 90th on the north side. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know why. Yeah, they
It
don't.
just stops.
Yeah.
It just
ran
stops.
out of cement. A certain rid of the north of
She's pushing these babies in a stroller in the dark and the rain, and with no sidewalks, while I'm in Detroit, staying at the Seahawks team hotel in Dearborn, having a great time at the Henry Ford Museum and commissioners' parties and all this other stuff. And she didn't even get to watch the Super Bowl because there was a windstorm and power went out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember that Super Bowl in Detroit, Super Bowl 50, whatever, 40. Super Bowl 40 in Detroit.
Yeah.
the power went out here in Seattle because of a windstorm. So she's in the dark with 2.5-year-old twins while I'm in Detroit covering the Super Bowl.
How long? I was thinking back on sort of the sports writing part of it. Do you get people that complain to you? I mean, it's a very political is not the right term, but argumentative space, right? People feel very strongly
emotional, right?
Emotional.
Yeah.
What happens in those situations?
Well, I get it doubly because now I'm hosting a radio show on KJR from 10 a.m. to noon, and they have this text line that people can just anonymously write in.
Oh, wow.
And it's just a piñata show of just me hanging on a string and then taking shots all the entire day. I mean, if I say something wrong or miss a fact, I hear about 59 text messages about it was September 20th, not 21st. So I get it there in real time, instantaneous. I've gotten handwritten letters quite a bit at News Tribune, less so recently. I get a lot of emails because my email is at the bottom. I always say thanks for reading or thanks for listening. I say that first. A lot on Twitter, X. I get a ton of that, especially after games. I rarely respond to those because after games, I'm thinking the people are a few cups in.
Yeah, a few.
Especially a night game. And it's not even worth my time to respond to most of those.
Well, they won't even remember what they wrote the next day, probably. Yeah.
But I've had people on Twitter challenge me to fights. I've had them.
You serious?
Yeah. I say, I want to meet you and let's fight. Like we're 10 years old on the playground. I'm
over an opinion about something with the Seahawks or some team. Okay. Wow.
And one of my favorite retorts of that is in the Army, we learned hand-to-hand combat, and they taught us how to grab the voice box, twist it, and pull it out of someone's throat.
Oh, wow.
Now, you don't get a lot of times of real-time practice of that because
I would think not.
It's a resource preservation issue if you just start practicing that on real people.
Boy.
So they tell me it works, and I've done it on dummies, but I haven't actually tried that with anyone. But it does speak to, Todd, your point is that there is an oversized importance on sports in our society. I'm the first to admit it, and here I am profiting from it, and I have a career from it. But the amount of resources, time, energy, media coverage, and most of all, money spent on sports teams, sports stadiums. I mean, there are municipalities, and there's some in Washington State, that we should be buying textbooks for kids, or we should be paying teachers, or we should be fixing mental health problems and drug abuse in our society. And we're spending $800 million on a football stadium.
Yeah.
There's something just ass backwards about that.
Yeah.
And our country is just so addicted to sports and live sports viewing and the personalities and who's getting traded and who did this. It's gross at times, and it is absolutely misguided. And I get a lot of stuff in that prism of just, it's just outside. It's too big for the importance in overall society. And I get that. And
it's a big form of entertainment for our society, right? People just are entertained by
escapism.
Yeah. Escapism. Yeah, for sure. I mean,
it is.
Yeah.
But I really do. I wish that our society's money, I get it. There's entertainment and there's a value in that. And I provide an entertainment by the stories I write. But it really is the Toy Story of our life. And I wish there was a little more balance of the money, time, effort, energy, media coverage toward things that really matter and could impact and change things.
Yeah.
That's why I really respect players like Russell Wilson. Think what you will about how Russell Wilson left Seattle and how he engineered his way out.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson, some of the viewers may know this. Russell Wilson went to Children's Hospital every Tuesday from the first week he was here as a rookie third-round pick in rookie minicamp in May of 2012 when he got drafted, all the way till he left. After he left, he and Sierra, his wife, came back and would make surprise visits to Children's. And I know he got criticized for filming it and putting it on his social media, but he was there.
Yeah.
And my wife works there, and I saw the impact firsthand of what it had on families and staff members. They still have Blue Tuesdays, not Blue Fridays. At Children's Hospital, it's Blue Tuesdays because Russell Wilson used to come there.
And that's cool.
The kids and the families that look forward to that, and even the staff members, it changed those kids' lives.
Yeah.
And they still talk about Russell Wilson to this day back at Children's Hospital.
Yeah, he got a lot of heat unnecessarily, I think, personally, because I always liked him. I thought he was just a solid person. He just seemed like
it was phony, admittedly, and some of it was over the top in how he advertised it. But so what? He was there. And
he was doing something great. Yeah.
I bring up that point to say there's a guy using his platform of sports, which really in the grand scheme of things isn't all that important, but actually impacting lives in an important way. And I will tell you, there's a community of Children's Hospital in Seattle who think Russell Wilson's pretty A-okay for that.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That's great. I'm interested now. So the Seahawks, obviously, they won the Super Bowl. How does that change your world when the team that you cover wins the Super Bowl? It's probably a lot more coverage initially right after the Super Bowl, but what does your life look like leading up to that? They win the Super Bowl. How does it change your world?
A lot busier, a lot more stories, a lot more input on stories. Editors that never had even noticed I'd been writing for years and years said, hey, you should write about this. Well, I've written about that 6 times, but okay, I'll write about that.
Right. Oh, now you're paying attention. Okay.
I got a lot of that.
Yeah.
I'm really fortunate, the News Tribune, that I still travel daily sports journalism. I don't have to tell you, newspapers are dying, and there are very few of them. I'm a dinosaur. There are only a handful of us across the country who are still daily newspaper writers who travel with printed papers, printed products still being produced. Yeah. And I'm the only one at our paper who has a travel card, a credit card. I'm the only one who travels. The News Tribune, when I joined it after going from the AP, that's a whole nother story. They wanted to move me back to San Francisco. I have a couple points in my life where I decided I chose family over career, and I'm so glad I did. And one of them was when I told you the Army wanted to send me to the DMZ without my wife, and I said, no, I want to stay married. So And the other was the reason I got out of being the Associated Press writer in Seattle. I ended up going to the University of Washington to be their writer and eventually the News Tribune's writer for the Seahawks, is the AP wanted to move me back to San Francisco about 1.5 years after I moved up here. And I told the sports editor in New York, wait a minute, I cannot replicate the house I bought in the school district I bought up here in Seattle and Roosevelt in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. Yeah. I can't even afford the house I just sold in Berkeley. There's no way that I could put my then 5-year-old kids or 4-year-old kids in a school district that I want to pay a house for to get them to have a good start. I want them to stay here in Seattle. She says, well, then you're refusing the position. You're not moving with the position. You're fired. Okay. And then I ended up going to the University of Washington. Scott Woodward hired me and wanted me to be his writer for the athletic department. And I was, and that's how I got to stay in Seattle. And I eventually went to the News Tribune. But that's another thing I wanted to tell people that has nothing to do with sports. That my advice after doing it, I've done this now for, 29 years. And I'm 55 now. I've been married for 29 years. My twins are 23 years old. And they are thriving. And we're proud of them. Go with what you love. The choice I did for career, I could have made more money. I'm fortunate that I have a wife who does really well and is really good at what she does in children's pediatric health. And so that helps me be able to say this, but if you can, if you're able to afford it, go with what you love, because ultimately that's what's most important of your job. It's not about how much money you make. It's about, do you like doing what you're doing? Are you motivated to do it? Can you impact and influence other people and enjoy doing it? And the other thing is, because of what I mentioned about the points of my life that I had pitched forks in the road, there is nothing more important in family than being there. And I miss so many things. My kids, now that they're 23, they say, Dad, what's the most important thing about being a parent? I said, being there, being present.
Yeah.
Even if you're just sitting in the stands in the back, just being there, taking them to practice, taking them to school. One of the greatest things about being a sports writer is that I had mornings off from the kindergarten year through the senior year of high school. There were never any games on weekday mornings. And I walked my kids to school at Green Lake. It was a 15, 20-minute walk. I made them pancake breakfast, chocolate chip or blueberry pancakes, and I walked them to school every day for 7 years, from kindergarten through 6th grade. It was the greatest thing about my job. They couldn't have paid me enough money to do that.
So we usually ask the question, other than money, how would you consider things successful? But you've basically answered that in the last few minutes of what's important in life.
Todd, for me, it's love and family. I've lost my father. He died about 14 months ago in Michigan. My mother is 90 years old, and she's in a memory care facility in suburban Detroit near my twin sister. She doesn't remember my name. When I go to visit her, I have to take a nurse's aide with me in there because the last time I was there a couple months ago, I just went in and said, "Hi, Mom," and I hugged her, and she grabbed a vase and almost hit me with it because she thought I was an intruder. My mom thinks I'm my dad when I drive her around because of context of a man driving her.
Okay.
And then wants to know why I'm not staying with her.
That's a hard season of life. Yeah.
It's hard. It's that point of life that we're all starting to enter now that we're in our 50s. And but you never get those times back. And that's what really, Todd, makes me think about being present. And that our kids are now 23 and our daughter's on a ship off the coast of Japan now. And I don't know when I'm going to even talk to her again. And I still remember going to her soccer games and my son who, we did soccer and baseball and basketball games every day for 14 years. And now I miss it. Money can't pay for that. I don't care how much money I could have made. That I joke, but those pancake breakfasts and walk to Green Lake for 7 years, like I said, you can't pay me enough to do that.
I wanted to ask you, because you have so many great stories. I love the Gruden story, and I'm sure there's a ton of them and too many for us to cover. But if you reach into your bag of just interesting stories, weird things that have happened in your career, what rises to the top? Is there some story that you think, here's something that's kind of strange that happened, or an interesting tidbit?
I got a Seattle one, Richard Sherman. So remember I told you that my job, I think, is to tell you what you can't see on television. Yeah. Because everyone's watching the games. Well, when there's a timeout at the stadium, we have television monitors right above us in the press box. And when there's a timeout, I go and look up to make sure they're in commercial. And if they are, I put the binoculars down on the sidelines. And everybody else has their head down typing or posting Twitter or whatever they're doing.
Okay.
And I got my binoculars looking at the sideline like this because I can get a lot of stuff the TV doesn't pick up or show you on the sideline. Oh, and I can write about that and add value to you as a reader because you didn't see it on television, but I saw it because I was there at the game.
Good point. Okay.
And so one of the games they were playing Atlanta, it was after their second Super Bowl season, near the end of the Legion of Boom time, and they had just given up a touchdown to the Falcons, and Richard Sherman goes at Chris Richard, the defensive coordinator, like he was going to punch him. He charged him as he came off the field, and I really thought he was going to deck him. And he ended up getting separated by Michael Bennett and a couple other guys, and he continued to scream and yell at Chris Richard.
Okay.
And finally, Pete Carroll comes over, and it kind of quelled it. It lasted for a good 45, 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I'd look up, make sure that they were still in commercial, and they were still in commercial. So I wrote that, and that was my game story. They ended up losing that game, and I went, the Seahawks frustrations boiled over to where Richard Sherman went in the face of Chris Richard, and my lead was just a color blow by blow of what that scene looked like. And so, but if you do that, you have the ethical responsibility to talk to the parties involved. You're not going to blindside them with the broadside like that.
Wait, so do you talk to them before you launch the story? Then you go seek them out, or do you launch it, or how do you do that?
So the mechanics of it is you write the game story. As soon as the game ends, my standard is to have it on the internet within 5 minutes of the game ending. So I'm writing what's called a running game story, which was a hell of a thing to do in Super Bowl 49 with the Malcolm Butler interception, by the way. And it's a hell of a thing to do with the Mariners blowing late leads with Bobby Ayala when I used to cover the Mariners. But when games flip at the end, you're screwed. You end up having to redo the whole thing.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I file as soon as the game ends. Then I go downstairs and talk to him and get interviews. And then I come up and have what's called a write-through, where you write the quotes and probably recast the story depending on what the interviews and the color of the locker room was. Led with Sherman fighting Richard. Went downstairs and asked Sherman and Richard about and Carroll. And Sherman denied it. Said it didn't happen. I said, well, I just saw the whole thing. I mean, I'm not just making this up.
Here's my binoculars, Richard.
Yeah. Richard Sherman's a Stanford-educated guy. I think he knows that on my profession, I don't just flat out make something out of thin air. It didn't happen. I said, well, of course it happened, Richard. I wouldn't write the story if it did. Well, anyway, he and I got this shouting match in the locker room, and he ended up declaring to the entire beat, for the rest of the season, if Bell's around, I'm not talking. So if you want any quotes from me, make sure Bell's nowhere near. But trying to ice me out. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to continue to do my job. And to this day, Richard Sherman and I are good friends. And if I see him, he's in Maple Valley. He comes around the Seahawks quite a bit. He got over that eventually. It was the same year that he threatened to get Jim Moore's credential revoked, a very public spat during a press conference.
Oh, right.
But it's stuff like that I sometimes run into. You have to have the accountability, a personal accountability of being there and giving them the opportunity to talk. You don't want to write a hit piece, what they'll think is a hit piece if you write it and then don't ask them about it or talk to them about it. The one other story about that, Gary, is when I was covering the A's, Billy Beane, who had a very pristine public image, Moneyball. This is post Moneyball. And he's a superstar, right? Yeah. Because that movie was very glowing of him, and he's an innovator in baseball.
And Brad Pitt played him, which doesn't hurt.
Great. Very few people can pull that off. That's amazing.
Make a movie about any of us. I'd love to have Brad Pitt play us, right? I mean, that's a good deal.
He was well aware of that.
That's my writer, by the way.
He appreciated that. Well, early in the season, Jermaine Dye in the playoffs had broken his shin on a foul ball that went up against the Yankees. Foul ball off his shin, shattered it. I could hear it in the press box. It's one of the oddest, grotesque things I've seen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he was still out into the following April, but he was ripping it for AAA Tacoma on a minor league rehab assignment. He was just hitting home runs. The A's were losing. They were off to like a 4-12 start as a playoff team, and they weren't scoring. Saturday afternoon, we're sitting around the batting cage, a day game after a night game, and all the beat writers are there, including Jeff Fletcher, who now covers the Angels for the Orange County Register, an Ohio University guy, a great friend of mine. At the time, Jeff Fletcher wrote for the Santa Rosa Press-Democrat, who only covered home games of the Giants and the A's. The Major League Baseball used to have the A's go on the road and the Giants would be home, and then when the Giants go on the road, the A's come home, so the market always had a home team playing. Well, so Fletcher would just cover all the home games of the Giants and the A's. And we're talking to Billy Beane around the batting cage, and Jeff Fletcher says, "Billy, how come you haven't called up Jermaine Dye? He's doing really well at Sacramento. It looks like you could sure use him. He looks ready." And Beane whips around and looks at Fletcher and says, Fletch, you sound like a guy who covers both teams and doesn't know shit about either one of them. And this was an on-the-record conversation. We weren't just BSing. This was like in the middle of an interview.
Yeah.
And I'm standing to Fletcher's left, and I said, "Billy, that ain't cool." I said, "Here we are having a civil conversation. That question is very much in play." And he looks at me and goes, "Who the F's talking to you, Bell?" I said, "Okay, Billy, this is how we're going to play this?" "Okay." So I said, "Well, I know what my lead in my story is when I get upstairs into the press box." So we talk about other things, and he realizes he'd gone too far. And he says to Fletcher and me, "Guys, I'm sorry. I got a little testy. I've been edgy all week because I just finished dipping." and he has this persona that he's this pretty boy, and he doesn't want people to know that he was using chewing tobacco and spitting into a cup. Pretty gross habit. Right. And at the time, baseball was trying to get out of because of mouth cancer.
They were trying to get away from that, right? Yeah.
And so he didn't want it out that would be bad. But I said, "Well, there's my other part of my lead." So I thought, okay, this is how we get. If you're going to act like an ass, I'm going to show you how this works. So I went up and wrote that Billy Beane spun around on Jeff Fletcher, the whole story, that he said, "You sound like you don't know a thing about either one of them." And then a few minutes later, Beane then apologized to reporters for saying, "Sorry, guys, I just quit dipping this week." Was in print. So at the time, back then, there were printed clips that they would put on the tables and also pass around the press box of the stories from the previous day. Yeah. Now it's all electronic, but they would print them out and put them around the clubhouse, and they'd put them around the press box. Well, the next day was Easter Sunday, and it happened to be a Sunday night national broadcast on ESPN. It was John Miller and Joe Morgan, A's and Angels. It was Sunday, Easter Sunday, so I had it off because I'd been covering the whole homestand. And Jim Young, great friend of mine, the A's PR guy, calls me in the 8th inning of the game. I'm out to dinner in Berkeley with my wife. And he says, "Greg, I got an irate general manager that wants to talk to you immediately." I said, "I bet I know what this is about." And I said, "Sure, I'll come down there." So I left the dinner. I actually dropped Wendy off at her apartment in Oakland. And I drove. I had my pass and my parking pass, and I drove straight to the Coliseum. John Jaw hits a winning home run, a walk-off home run. There's fireworks going off in that stadium. I'm walking underneath Oakland Coliseum. I went straight to the clubhouse because I'm not writing a story. I'm just here to see Beane. The place is celebrating for the only times of the season so far because the A's had stunk up to that point. And Beane comes walking up behind me because he had been in the workout room. During games, he doesn't watch the games upstairs, he would run on a treadmill for 2.5, 3 hours, however long an A's game was. And he came from the workout room, which was up the stairs by the Raiders locker room, down to the A's clubhouse. And he saw me standing there, and he came up behind me and about jumped me. And I was trained in the Army. If someone comes up behind you, you shoulder roll them, and then you give them one of those voice box treatments. And I was about to break into that mode with Billy Beane right outside the A's clubhouse because he jumped me from behind.
Yeah.
And he just starts going after me, spitting on me. He's sweating from his workout. Let's go into Art Howe's office, right? I said, Billy, this has nothing to do with Art. I said, you run off on us, and this is just a reminder to you that, hey, we got some respect here too. If you want our respect, you got to respect us too.
Yeah.
And this is my good reminder to you. The only reason he was so pissed off is because John Miller, Joe Morgan, and the ESPN crew got to read this story in the clips, and his national image was getting tarnished by him.
Yeah.
That's the only reason he cared.
Yeah.
So he drags me into the clubhouse. I was like, well, I'm not going to back down from this. And we go in. He wants to go to Art's office, but Art has nothing to do with this. So I'm not going to go in there. And then, by the way, I'm well aware that it's me against everybody in there. It's all A's against this writer.
Right.
And here's the general manager screaming at me. Well, all the guys, it was like a frat house with those A's because they were all 20-year-old dudes. And it was just like Major League when they strip off the owners in a bikini picture. It was just like that in the clubhouse in the A's.
Right.
Just like that.
Goofing off. And okay.
So they won the game, and they're in there like throwing beers on each other and having a great old time, and the music's blaring. And here in the middle of that whole scene, Billy Beane's bitching me out and pointing a finger at me and just going on. I'm never talking to Sacramento Bee again. They can send Jim Van Vliet or any other writer down. I'm not talking to him either, and it's all because of you. You can tell him it's because of you. Yeah, whatever, Billy. Just went back and forth. To this day, Jeff Fletcher says, hey, man, that was really cool you did that. I really appreciate that. Remember that time you got Billy Beane all torqued off because you defended all of it?
Well, gosh, you've been so generous with your time, but I do want to ask you, one of our favorite questions is, Greg, you have so many good stories. We could probably talk to you for 5 hours, but if you could go back in time, or it could be now, it could be somebody who's still alive, well, who would you wish you could just go sit with, talk with, have a cup of coffee, a beer, whatever you drink with that person? Who would it be? What would you want to know?
Two people, Barack Obama. I am absolutely amazed at how he came from where he came from to become the most powerful man on earth, president of the United States, without a whole lot of experience doing it. Grassroots, South Chicago, campaigning to be an Illinois senator. I mean, he just came up on his own will. I think he's an unbelievable orator and communicator. I mean, he's like the modern day Martin Luther King as far as inspiring people with his oration.
Yeah.
And the things he says and how he says it and his pace and his appreciation of history and he wows me. Communication and an inspiration wise, he absolutely, to this day, absolutely wows me. I read everything I can get about him, his couple of his biographies. He's fascinating to me.
He'd probably play hoops with him while you sit and talk. He likes doing that, right?
And then drink a beer with you afterward.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like a cool dude outside of the fact that he was the most powerful man in the world. And then you're just like, he seems like just a normal guy.
And I'm going to sound political with my second one because it's somewhat related. Jimmy Carter. He was a Naval Academy graduate, a nuclear engineer. He could have been anything he wanted to be. And he ended up being the right guy at the absolute wrong time.
Yeah.
The oil crisis, the hostage crisis, he never had a chance. But the ideas he had and how smart he is, Wendy and I have gone to see him speak. I saw him speak before he passed away in his later life. Fascinating. He was a peanut farmer and a son of peanut farmers in rural Georgia. And to be a naval engineer, a nuclear engineer at Annapolis from that, let alone to become a president.
Yeah.
And like I said, I pluck him down in this society today. I think he would thrive in leading our country with the ideas he had and the empathy that he had. And I'm a big believer. I teach leadership at the Intercollegiate Athletic Leadership Program, graduate students at the University of Washington. And I talk a ton about empathy. And I really hammer my twins about the need for empathy. Jimmy Carter had that. And he was such an intelligent man. Like I said, he just At the time he was anyone that would have been president from 79 to 80 would not have lasted beyond one term because of the confluence of events.
Just wrong time, right?
Yeah.
Gas shortage, hostage crisis, inflation, unemployment. Yeah, the whole thing.
Incredible character.
Yeah, he's a Renaissance man of 1970s.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Those are two great choices, Greg. Love those. Hey, real quick before we wrap up, one of the things we like to share on this is with young people that are looking at these fields. And you've had this amazing journey, been very successful at it, not only as in your career, but as a father. And I'll keep highlighting the pancakes. I wanted to just ask you, if a young person wants to get into journalism today, I mean, obviously, I just saw Ethan graduate and every commencement address was about AI and don't worry, you're still going to have a human contribution. And I was like, I looked at Amy and I thought, guy, should we be worried? But I'm curious, like, what would you tell a young person that wants to go in the field of journalism today?
Honestly, I'm not sure I would recommend it. If you're really hell-bent and want to love it and do it like I did, read a lot, write a lot as practice to get your voice. Read a lot to see how different styles of writing and read it critically. Why did the writer start with this scene, for instance, or why did they start with this quote? But on a pragmatic scale, I'm not sure I would recommend it. The industry is just so fraught with dead ends and venture capitalists who have bought media companies and just sell it off for parts by the end.
Good point. Yeah.
And I really couldn't in good conscience, somebody who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on an undergraduate scholarship, say, yeah, now go apply for a journalism job. That's a really dark, gloom, rain cloud answer. I would say take your love for writing and make a difference in, maybe it's social causes, or if you want to make money, go be in marketing or corporate communications, or write for others' objectives, or it's going to be hard. You're going to make $35,000, $40,000 a year starting out. If you want to be a sports writer, you're going to carry a clipboard in the mud covering high school football. Yeah. If you're lucky. If you're lucky, you might get a byline in the paper doing that. And by the way, you're making $35,000, $40,000 a year. And in where we live, that's very hard to get by on. So I'm just being honest. A lot of people go to graduate school after they have journalism degrees because they can't find jobs. And then sometimes after graduate work, they can find jobs and connections that can get them into different avenues beyond that. A lot of journalists and people who like to write become successful lawyers because the law industry really values the written word, obviously, and dissertations and cases and case studies and precedents that I know a lot of journalists, undergrads who are going to law school now.
Oh, man, Greg, I could talk to you all day long. It is so much fun to hear your stories and a lot of things about your journey I didn't know. So thanks for spending the time with us.
Very nice to meet you.
Well, thank you guys both. I really applaud what you're doing. There's a need for this stuff. And it's a really cool idea that you do this. I was really excited when Gary asked me to be a part of it. So thanks a lot. It's great meeting you, Todd, too.
Thanks, Greg, for being here. We really appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys.
All right. See you now. Bye.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. We're action.
Is this thing on?
This is on. Yeah, this is on. Okay. All right. Do we have anything else?
I'm sure we do, but I think we're ending it here for the safety of everyone involved.
All right.